Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to another episode. An interesting title arose, and I felt for this episode I wanted to pinpoint to the best of my ability certain events and certain things about human existence that I've noticed, which I feel these are clues, or there are events that are rooted in mystery. So, divinity of the human mystery is wondering about not how from a known position we can or may know the unknown, but how from an unknown position we may also know how we know things. There's this idea that distinguishes the archetype of the angel with the archetype of the human. And the angel is a concept that in ancient times it was nature, then a sort of invisible other, then an ultimate, you can say, focal point through language. But anyways, what I'm trying to say is that the idea of the angel was that the angel did not have free will. The angel was the divine will, was a pure expression of a will beyond itself. In other words, the angel, you can say even in Abrahamic traditions and that lens of thought, it was the light beam of the sun. The sun was the truth, the angel was its echo or whatnot. Then the archetype of the human, we have the differentiation between the two as having free will and having choice. And if we were to notice what is divine about human life, it is moments that surpass the expectation of human choice. That means if right now something, let's say, let's use the metaphor of the flatlands. In a world of squares, imagine, in a 2D world of squares, and on a table, imagine the surface of a table is a town, let's call it Square Town. And these squares that are living in this town, suddenly we put a cube on the table. This cube appears to the other squares, and suddenly it's as if a miracle has happened, something divine. A square has teleported. You know? That means when we put a cube on the table, that side of the cube which is making contact with the 2D dimension, that is miraculous. It's as if a square appeared out of nowhere in Square Town. So the divinity of the human mystery, I feel, comes close to these lines, where from the reasoning and common sense of, for example, 2D beings, like we're squares, and the mysteries of our realms are cubes. So it's as if I'm trying to, as a square, wonder about what edges of this square suggest the cube. Something like that. Anyways, I'm trying to look for divine clues. I have thought of some. Some I would say extreme, some less extreme. One immediate clue is that we are not just an object. And the other clue is we are aware that we are aware of subjects changing. So just like we have two eyes that see the same, we have two dimensions of movement of experience that we're aware of. any person who's aware of a memory or anything, if you can visualize anything or whatnot. Pretty much the clue is we are 50% object, 50% subject, and totality 100% unknown witness of this 50-50. So one clue I would say is how we are observing how we are an object and subject simultaneously. Two eyes seeing the same view. So I would consider that as one clue. And keep in mind this episode is more like me also trying to surpass my own limits, trying to see how far I can see. The other clue, the other clue, which is huge, is creaturehood. I feel creaturehood is a mystery. It's not that its explanation of how it came about is a mystery. That evolution explains a sort of gradual development over time. What is mysterious is why this design. That means whenever a person reverse engineers, the comfort with the moment goes away, of course. So it's like a person reverse engineering what human beings, and we go back to our ancestors, then we go back to seeing, I don't know, like the earliest cell responding to some sort of stimulus. Let's say a cell responding to light. And we go further back and we see a self-replicating gene. And then if we go further back, eventually we will reach a point where we don't exist. So we are like a creature in the moment, and the more we go back, the more mysteries and the clues show up. You see, these are the future we can't know because it hasn't happened. But the past, we have some sort of clues left, right? So the clues that we can find are from the present, what we find accessible now, and what has been left in the past, what has been pointed to from the past. I should probably name these clues. We'll call it one, the clue of the creature. Why there is even a body, why there is a geometry to the body's appearance with this specificity. If we really look at it, there is no reason why there should be the design of a creature. You see, existence, sure, we can justify that through a comprehension of energy, but why energy would sculpt itself is the mystery. It's as if even though the Big Bang theory is looking at pretty much we're looking at the temperature behind our universe, in the background of our universe, and making a conclusion that the universe has been cooling down. But the complex thing is, even if there was a Big Bang and it was like this pool of energy, this pool of potential, and suddenly in less than a second there was a cosmic inflation, and after that cosmic inflation there was enough for material to show its face in the observable universe, even though there was no face yet, no human consideration. You see, we have to consider, even though our ideas trying to, the knowledge of human beings is trying to fathom what happened before was a situation where knowledge wasn't here. So it's as if we're using a new language to try to figure out an ancient event. So the event could totally have existed in ways where our language doesn't even have those verbs, I feel in higher dimensions, this is the difference. If we are to fathom, the difference is creatures that need language and creatures that don't. You see, some creatures, we say some beings, we say it's like the attention is dependent on the form it has appeared in. In the form it is moving, but in the form of the self. Right now, people, they want their sense of self to survive. How many people want the universe to survive? Many people want themselves to be healthy. How many people want the universe to be healthy? You see, it's not there. The idea is not there. It's like a specific chunk of elemental reality that we are each managing. But if we were to experience ourselves beyond language, it would mean beyond the dependence of a changing world. So think of it as if the material, the yogi wanted to renounce material desire, and so in renouncing material desire, cared to renounce the world. Now, to renounce a material desire is like renouncing the self in the world. But to renounce the world, or let me say it this, it's very complex here for me to draw the line. It's kind of like saying, once you're done being a self, then you got to be a world. And once you are detached from being a world, like right now, we are a sense of self, and people get attached to senses of self in accordance to the inner events that take place in their life. That means how someone spoke to them the day before affects how they will be tomorrow, believe it or not. So, the mystery of the unknown viewer, the clue of the creature, the clue of the objective evolution, then the clue of the subjective evolution. These are pretty much the two clues so far that I've pointed out. So I pretty much look at my bio. Another clue, I would say, I just remembered, another clue about the, okay, here, let me classify these in a better way. Let me start again by saying, first we look at the dimensions of intelligence. We find that there's a body and we find there's a mind. But if we want to honor our ancestors, they perceive the traditional model of body, mind, soul, right? The soul was like getting really close to the unknown, the body was very close to the known, and the mind was somewhere in between, being a bridge between two worlds. So to go down the list of the clues of the body, one clue of the biological body, I would say, is attention bound to it? That means, could mind be beyond body? Another view of it would be that could the body have stood up too early? I personally feel this. When I look at the biology of the human being, if you look at your hands, you see you can't make your fingernails touch your forearm, right? It's as if the hand wasn't designed to move that way. But isn't it strange if you try to, with your fingers, try to touch the inside of your forearm, your fingers get closer to it. And I'm telling you, if like I feel human being, every person should try to do this once to just see what it's like. Put your palms on the ground and literally try to wonder, if you were still in nature as an animal, how would your body positioning be? And honestly, we are still designed to be four-limbed. Even though we have stood up on our two legs and we've had such advancement and whatnot. But I'm telling you, the biology of the body, it's as if it was in a four-limbed, the body was evolving in accordance to a four-limbed evolutionary directive. Then it's as if the biology stopped, something else started to moving. Do you know what it is? It's as if space possessed biology. And I have no idea, but I feel energetically there's a way to explain this, even with our current sciences. I just don't know how. But I feel it can be done. Anyways. Yeah, that we stood up too early, that's a possibility. That means the body is not fully designed. Something else has been taking over the body's evolution. Pretty much pretty much our evolution has been bypassed by interdimensional interference, maybe. Maybe actually extraterrestrial interference, maybe divine dash simulation interference. That means if we are inside a mind, and this was a clue I've kept it in the back of my mind to tell you at the end, right? Because the last clue is one where it's the terrace, it's the balcony where my soul is standing at right now as I'm giving this talk, and it's like the biggest mystery of my being, which I'm going to share. I'm just going to make a note of it in case. Yeah. Perfect. So anyways, back to it. I'm looking at what the body means, and I'm wondering about the clues about it. I'm looking at what the mind means, wondering about the clues about that, and then I'm wondering about what the soul meant, because nowadays the view of the soul is really either we're looking at the past or we call it advancement in communication, you know, especially ever since this person started a YouTube channel, you know. You know, this random person, you know. Because that's the only way to secularize spirituality, because it's a communication. That means it doesn't matter if the person's interacting with interdimensional phenomenology or numenology, or interacting with, like, in the outer realms with embodied phenomenology, right? Its communication is involved in it, because intelligence is a moving force, and when we communicate there is movement, and that movement that originates from within is really pure. And human beings that really comprehend the nature of how effort occurs, happens, that means, believe it or not, effort is effortlessly, instantaneously there when the thought is. Another clue for the body is speech, and it's this creature's fingers. That means if we look at nature, I've asked this myself like a couple times. I'm like, why aren't, first of all, other animals in the animal kingdom building skyscrapers? Why aren't, like, penguins opening up nightclubs? Why aren't there wolves, actual wolves in Wall Street? You know? And the thing is, it's as if a selection process. That means, think about it for a moment, that our species as human beings became so advanced that we were done with our own planet. And we had super advanced technology, and we went to another planet, and we're like, oh my God, look at this planet, you know, maybe it needs a mentor. You know? So it would be as if, imagine we became the advanced aliens that we wondered would contact us one day. So now think of it this way, we're this advanced humanity. As advanced human beings, we've sent a human unit, a group of human beings in a spaceship, to go and try to see if they can spark intelligence on a planet, right? So imagine a group of human beings in a spaceship that's kind of stealth. They go onto this planet and they scope out all the species, and they see, first of all, there's no intelligent being, but they see which species has fingers, which species on the planet, which genetical movement has the biggest potential. Do you know? And so it's as if the divine clue is, wait a minute, it's as if, can you imagine like an alien species being like, yo, this species has fingers. Let's select that. You know, so I feel that could be a divine clue where our design evoked our divinity. or inspired our divinity, if there is such a thing as the divine being the unknown moving the known. Another clue is how the self and the world are actually inseparable. What that means is either everything is the periodic table, or the periodic table is the smaller layer in the onion. Pretty much the mystery of our elemental inseparability with a dimension of activity. Right now, I'm the periodic table talking to you. How do you feel about that, listeners? You know, and you're the periodic table listening back, you know. There's way more clues. The biology, for example, the breath work. I have used my breath, I will tell you, in dream states. I have used my breath to test my dream state. That means once I had the privilege of being conscious in a dream and then closing my nose in the dream, actually doing this, closing my nose in the dream and noticing that I'm still breathing. That was a way to test inside the dream state. And what it exactly feels like is that in the dream you close your nose, like let's say if you find yourself in a dream where you have conscious control, right? So if you use your hand to close your nose in the dream state, you will still hear your breathing. So the breath is not only like a radar, it's not like a scanning thing. I actually feel it carries information. Excuse me, it's a phone. So, the mystery of the breath in yogic, for example, yogic thought, there's the concept of Maha Samadhi. Maha, M-A-H-A, means great. And Samadhi is a state of inseparable being. So Maha Samadhi, the great Samadhi, is that once it's like the movement out of your body. That means it's like pretty much when a yogi consciously using the breath, the attention leaves the body into greater, I shouldn't say greater, but into space. So that's a mystery of the body. Why is there a breath? Why is there a dynamism required? Now, one more thing I would say, another mystery of the body, because the world and the body are seen as inseparable, is the mystery in the world and how the world appears as not the world kind of reality feels like an imagination we didn't imagine. I'll be honest, it feels like we're in something's mind. That's what it feels like, because if we were only in our own mind, the moment we changed our mind, the whole universe should have changed. But because when we change our mind, like a part of our inner realm changes, but not the outer realms are the jurisdiction of an elemental abiding. That means it's as if like in the outer realms, it's like the periodic table speaks first. You know, the periodic table's in charge. But in the inner realms, it's attention, and it's an unknown presence of attention. Now, I'll get to that, and pretty much, if I find any more clues about the body, I'll share, but I feel I've gone through a bunch of them. Another clue of the body is memory. But that stems into the mind. I'll keep that for the mind. So just the world. I don't know. Like another clue is in nature's miracle. So usually we have this view of the concept of miracle through the Abrahamic tradition. But what if this was a biological body? Just taking this idea, whoever's listening. Just imagine we are cells inside a body, inside a universal body. So if something miraculously happens, a miracle inside the body is the overall body system, right? So our body self-maintains itself, self-sustains itself, right? It's like the DNA's instruction is like, yo, hold this form, you know, and the DNA is holding that form, right? So it's the mystery of universal bodyhood, how the universe is connected. And karma sometimes feels to me like a wound, like when there's an infection, the white blood cells of the body engage, right? The white blood cells go to fight the infection. So similarly, I feel that the way events and miracles in nature happen, it's as if like the whole universe is keeping it together, you know? It's a suggestion of universal health, or personal events that happen. You know, we could say that there's so many beings who have attained universalhood that we are inside their minds. This universe is the container of endless minds. It can be such a beautiful. To continue now towards the mysteries of the mind, the clues that we get for the mind. So the clues of the body, pretty much existence is strange, how it's here. Okay, we got to keep this in mind that we're here. That's the biggest clue. That's the biggest clue that there's something odd going on, that the oddity recognizes itself. Okay. The mind has to do with activity. It has to do with our understanding of motion. Simply because if the mind is something more than the body is being in a snapshot way understood. We are saying the body is made of particles, these particles are specific, and this whole system leads to the function. So, the mind is a story, and it's a story set into motion. Its mystery is its quality, a quality of watching itself, a quality of creating itself as it watches itself, and destroying itself, as if what does destruction and creation have in common? The unknown is watching it. If the body never moved, the mind would not be a character in a story. So really the mystery of the mind also has to do with the mystery of the body starting to move. But the one mystery of the mind is that, let's say it's an antenna. Could it be an antenna? Could it be that the mind is the aftermath of what the brain receives? Could it be just like a signal, pretty much? Imagine an interdimensional signal. Pretty much the world being a simulation could be a clue. Us being an antenna could be a clue for the mind. The mind not having a user could be a clue. the mind using language. Of course, language is a big mystery. Many creatures in nature can communicate, but they can't communicate to the complexity we do. So language itself is a big mystery. What can I really say? People's minds arise differently. But for my own mind, the mystery of it has been, first of all, memories. Where do the memories lead? The memories are stretched out in a linear sense of time. If you feel that right now there's a time to the moment, the mystery of the mind can go to the earliest memory of the person in this life. And I personally have a memory where I didn't learn language, so I was a non-ideological entity. I was a biological human being. I was a child, but I didn't have a personality yet, but I recorded something of the moment. Like a camera, my eyes saw the moment, but had no concept overlay. I wasn't a concept, the world wasn't a concept, it was still direct experience of image. So for me, that mystery, that memory surpassed my conscious memory. It surpassed my identity. The memory of my identity, where I suddenly woke up as a person. That's strange. I don't know how it really specifically happens, but it's as if it's like the child has no clue what's going on. Suddenly the child has identified itself. Jacques Lacan, this French psychologist, said it's like the mirror effect. The child notices its individualism in the system, so it notices what it sees in the mirror is not something else, it is itself. So the mystery of how we are even an individual, how we became a person, the mystery of personhood is really the mystery of the mind, the mystery of the personality. A bigger mystery is what's going on with language in the way where we say my mind, my body, my soul. Who's that my? Do you know? we say my birthday, I celebrated my birthday, but it's as if there is something ageless celebrating its age, something outside of time checking the time. It's like there's something there with the whole ambience of language being like a fog, being clouds, and us feeling there is no clear sky because of the cloud. Another divine clue, another clue that there's something unknown behind the scenes, is how we can fathom our mortality, how we even considered an afterlife. That's weird. Most creatures in nature, they're just focused on at most their own survival, not discovery. Discovery is a totally different thing. It's as if it was survival of the fittest, then it became entertainment of the knowledgeable from survival of the fittest. That means it wasn't enough just feeding an empty stomach. There was a desire to animate and participate in how the world is even animated before us. So in my personal experience in regards to what I have considered to be the mind, which is the totality of my intelligence, that means it's like whatever I'm saying my mind is, it's like that's whatever intelligence that is the power source of my being, really. And that's a word, of course. That means there are some people who, like, those are the true teachers, those are the true those people who their eyes are open, where they have transcended a human relationship with their humanhood. That means it's like they have no obsession on any content in their moment. If their soul was an orb, their mind, all the content in it, and the body, the specified relationship of content in the orb. Now, when it comes to, other than that, it's either future, either past, either present, or timeless. And usually the present is the doorway to the timeless. It's kind of like existence is one truth, but our experience of this existence makes it multidimensional. The mystery of the soul was pretty much the mystery of the mover of the moment. The poet Rumi says it best. He says, wherever you are, be the soul of that moment. That means that which is the life force. That which is animating it. That means like my body is where the sound is, the potential of the sound is coming from. The sound is coming from the initiative of the mind, and the mind is in a sense the servant of the soul, really. The mystery of the soul, I would say, is emotional salvation. It's when the deep mystery or the inner yearning, it's like it's like the person has surpassed the game of containing and being contained, because that's the game we're in right now as individual creatures. Individual consciousness, it has two things to do. Either it contains itself, either it contains the world, or it vanishes. So the individual can pay attention to itself and can pretty much pay attention to its world, or it cannot be a self or the world and watches the whole movie. That means, what does it mean when God is in your eyes? That means just the notion. Meister Eckhart said, the same eyes I see God are the same eyes God sees me. And so the mystery of the soul is that, could it surpass the creative dimension and the destructive dimension, regardless of how they're maintained? That means it's as if we are starting off as a known individual and finding contentment ultimately as an unknown collective. Yeah, the body's mysteries, ultimately it's on its movement, it's on what is being done and how it's being. The mystery of the mind is what it's doing, how it's being the doer, and how it's also being, right? And when it comes to the soul, even though there's the word, the individual Atman, the doer view of the soul, But I would say the soul is being, pure being. So we are being as a bigger onion layer, and the smaller layer is where the doer is in. So we are being all that we're doing. Therefore, an explanation of how in every moment the overall thing is watching through the individual. That means Spinoza's God wins the lottery. Now to the final clue. This is perhaps a short episode, but this is something where anybody who feels like trying to help open my eyes on this point, like this is the furthest I've come with these eyes. I would say I was lying in my bed, staring at the ceiling, and it was an incredibly divine moment. Because as I was laying there, for a moment I heard the sound of my breathing. I noticed how I'm noticing my breathing, and for a moment there came, is this really it? That thought came to me. Is this it? Like something doesn't make sense in the universe, in the universal activity. And what doesn't make sense is, this is the ultimate clue. Why is something here at all? This is not for the philosophically faint of heart. Why is anything here at all? And this was shocking to me. And for a moment I'm like, for who though? Right? Because everything we look at, right, we wonder about its design, right? So when you look at stuff in the world, things that are man-made, you look at, for example, I'm looking at this coffee cup. This concept of a cup was in someone's imagination. This company that made this cup was in someone's imagination. It's as if it's like endless subject from the inner realm, things becoming outer, and then these outer contributing to the outer, and on and on and on. But it seems like this endless from the inner coming to outer. You know what it's like? It's like that emotion I had was kind of like feeling, it's as if too rare that on a rock in the middle of nowhere, it's too surreal. That's the issue. Because of how surreal it is, it can't be explained. As if we're seeing something so strange, regardless of whatever explanation we find for it, it's too surreal, right? So it's like a surreal, fearless way of looking at what the true face of the earth is, right? It's a mystery. I don't feel I've painted the picture enough. I gotta share it again. It was this feeling of wondering who is this all for. It obviously can't be for our personalities, because our personalities came after, right? So it's as if the universe was set into motion, seeds of potential designs of galaxies and possibilities in galaxies were placed, and then we arose into the scene, and we're suddenly opened our eyes in this universal film as actors, and we're like, what's our part? And nobody knows, right? Some people feel a director left some notes somewhere, right? But some people feel there is no director, you know? But the oddity, it's just so strange. It's so strange. I'm a creature right now, talking about how I'm a creature right now. Like there's something in the middle of whatever act of free will where the person's like, wait a minute, how is this me when I am made of the world? You see the mystery of that? So it's like reaching a point where there has to be a bigger, there has to be a hidden narrative, a hidden real narrative. That means maybe we're all squares right now, and we can't comprehend a three-dimensional being's survival strategy. That means we know creatures aim for continuity. So if there's the possibility of even subtler dimensions, why wouldn't creatures aim to continue? And can you imagine how savage it would be if in this continuity there is a scarcity of resources between dimensions? One dimension invades another dimension. In my science fiction, I shared this because I noticed a lot of fiction is not taking advantage of interdimensional warfare. Interdimensional warfare, people have seen it in regards to individual characters, where a character, for example, teleports to different parts of the space-time continuum. That's not interdimensional, but it's as if technically it is, because the person's teleportation is only explained by moving in another dimension, right? So now imagine if it's interdimensional warfare between dimensions. What that means is, imagine there's this soldier walking alone in a battlefield, and there's an army heading towards it, and the army's like, this soldier's insane, and this soldier suddenly warrior raises his sword into the sky, and suddenly, like out of thin air, chariots of, like, I don't know, cavalry come out of nowhere, you know? So I'm saying, like, that would be interdimensional warfare, where the general was hiding his army in another dimension. That's like Sun Tzu's Art of War, if Sun Tzu was alive, you know, not in the past, but, you know, 1,000 years in the future. And you know, there is something strange I just realized in regards to Vedic thought. I could touch on this in the sense that the idea of the individual soul was a journey into truth, as if the individual person was a journey in the illusion, but the individual soul was journeying in the truth, right? To journey in the truth doesn't mean there is nothing to do. It may mean that there is nothing to hold on to. That means it could be right now we're experiencing one side of the coin, and most likely after our transition we'll experience the other side of the coin. The individual soul, what could its task be? It's as if the collective was a mirror. Rumi, this poet Rumi, he shares this in his poetry. He says truth was a mirror. Then this mirror was shattered, and every fragment of soul is reflecting a part of the truth. Now, I would say this in a way where it's as if each part of that, instead of a mirror, it was like an ultimate pattern. And this ultimate pattern was fragmented. It was broken. So it was broken into different waves of itself. What that means is, you can say, from the eyes of the heart of hearts, or the soul, the solar eyes, the eyes of your being, it's a performance. That means, as if, imagine there is there is the body, there's the mind, then there's the soul. Now let's treat the mind as two-dimensional, the soul, the individual soul, as three-dimensional, and the collective soul as four-dimensional. Okay, just for example's sake. So it would mean the mind's journey times how would I say it? It's as if what the mind is doing, the individual soul has already done in so many other dimensions. Multiply. Check this out. What the two-dimensional mind, for metaphor's sake, is doing is what the three-dimensional mind is being. Excuse me, the three-dimensional individual soul is being. And what the individual three-dimensional soul is doing is what the four-dimensional collective soul, or Parabrahman, is being. So it's fair to say that when a person in, let's say, a two-dimensional reality as a square is doing something, if they trust, they access their three-dimensional being. That means if you trust the moment, any point in the space-time continuum, you get access to the knowing of the individual soul. Anytime you stop the movement of the individual soul, which is, I'm for secular audiences saying the mind's life, calling it the mind's life, but it's as if here's the thing, if your body trusts itself, it accesses the being of its mind. If your mind trusts what it's doing, it will access the being of the individual soul, the Atman. Just entertain me here. If the individual soul trusts its being, it will know the collective. The collective is where the past and future are like a teardrop. They are literally like a question mark if the I at the end closed the question mark. Let me see if I can find the shape. This is how I'm explaining time. If I find this shape, It's perfect. There should be... There we go. There we go. This is the shape of time. I would say this is how it's what I'm saying in regards to the trust. There we go. You see this picture of this drop? Time is literally the center point of it. Imagine that's how the mind is being, and the body experiences a roundabout of time, right? Coming back to the same moment. So I feel hilariously what death may feel like. It may feel like never being born. What beyond this may feel like. It may feel like being unconditional to life's changing pace. Time is a teardrop of the gods that fell into the vision of man. I pretty much looked at the ceiling and felt nothing makes sense when the senses are limited. When the senses are limited, it's just satisfaction. So unless we find a strategy to wonder about the limitless human being with a multidimensional tolerance, which both the theist and the atheist have exiled. They have both exiled the multidimensional in the sense of free will's engagement with it. That when you go to the religious lens, through the religious lens, to wonder about the soul, to wonder about its movements, blasphemy. How dare you not acknowledge the will of the Creator? You know, when you go and say it to secular audiences, it's like, yo, put your imagination aside. We don't need this woo in the room. You know, so it's banished. It's as if they have exiled. They have exiled the ability of such a vast mind. The human being's eyes are as far as the sky. Yet we are branded small and we live small lives trying to hope for big ambitions. It's ridiculous. You know, we should already be awakened in the big, but we have big dreams only. We are dreaming big, but feeling small, and time and the clock is ticking. And it's a waste. There is so much unknown. Honestly, I feel life is an ascension into consciousness. Literally waking up. It's like, imagine it's literally a rising, just like the sun. Consciousness, life is a sunrise, death is a sunset. Yet, if there is something not identified with light and darkness, then there is no death, right? When you step out of the court, you're no longer bound by the rules of the game. Only inside the field, the rules of the game apply. So why is there anything at all? Why should there be a rock in the middle of nowhere where creatures that struggle to survive now have reached the convenience, but while in this convenience have an obliviousness and ignorance to how rare it is that we're here? If the species advances its communication, what is more divine than that? What else could divinity want? I felt it's a cosmic joke existence. I feel there is something behind the scenes, and we are actors that notice it's a film, but the director cannot be seen. Now the director either is seen outside of yourself or is seen as yourself, right? I would say the director doesn't exist in a changing realm as a concept. There was the sage Sri Ramana Maharshi. He saw this yogi named Papaji when Papaji was as a yogi in this mountain Arunachala. Sri Ramana Maharshi walks up to him and Papaji's dancing in this yogic mountain. And Sri Ramana Maharshi says, "Hey, what are you doing? You know?" And Papaji looks at him and says, "I am dancing with God. Krishna has come. I am dancing with God. Can't you see it?" And Sri Ramana Maharshi waits. Papaji's dance finishes, and Sri Ramana Maharshi says, "A God that comes and goes is not the real God." And that's the thing. A self that comes and goes is not the real self. So our suffering is on unreal selves. We are suffering for an attachment to a self that comes and goes. So there has to be an approach and a fearlessness of the species to go back into the unknown, look at things again, and then that with a new wilderness of the conscious activity and hopefully non-dual fearlessness, advanced civilization. Because you see, there is nothing wrong with nature if we consider it all as natural. I notice mortality. I notice my own mortality. There's moments where I wonder, will the attention wait for the body to move? Or will the attention move before the body gets a chance to exit? That means if this is an airplane, this, let's say, moment of being, and I feel as a pilot, I'm wondering if the pilot will eject the plane of existence or if the pilot will land the plane. Most likely, I feel if the pilot lands the plane, the elemental realm may continue. So think of it this way, that an advanced civilization requires advanced beings, and an advanced being wanted to be so advanced in building an advanced civilization that this advanced being wanted to be free from air. And the only way you can be free from air is instantly reaching your destination. It's an inner realm teleportation. Inner realm teleportation. That's what's going on. I feel that's what's going on when people listen. The attention gets teleported to the image evoked. Like there was a man named Sadhguru. He said the content of your mind is not your choice, and that was one of the most profound statements I've heard in this life. Because it's as if language comes, it shares an image, but how the image is received, is key, is the suggestion of what the reality is there. That means it's strange. It's as if we are what's in the room, but we don't know what's in the room. Isn't that phenomenal? And for how long are we going to be oblivious as just ideological animals? Like, what is this? A mystery of the mind, a clue for the mind, I would say, is also a quote from Da Vinci. Da Vinci had this quote, I don't remember it exactly, but Da Vinci said something in the lines of time waits for those who require it. Something like that. I don't remember the exact quote. But it was as if Da Vinci in that quote was saying, time waits for you. What does that mean? That means there is a supernatural, something is happening supernaturally. It's not unnatural, it's not even separate from nature, it's just nature as if it was supreme. I shouldn't say supernatural, I should say superior natural. So it's too odd. So when reality becomes surreality, that is the real earth. And this is all bunkers of language. The comfort we seek. What comfort zone? What comfort zone in the void? Someone please tell me. What comfort zone? What home? What home do we have? When we don't know where we are. Usually the idea of a person's home is they know where the home is. But when we don't know where the universe is, what the universe is, even if it's something limited to just location, a lot of our knowledge is local. But the way the experiencer is happening seems non-local. That's why I'm saying the antenna, the signal's not from here, but the brain is. Daniel in the chat section says supranatural. That's a good term, yeah. So that's the thing. Because it's unknown, we are all pioneers. That's the hilarious thing. We feel the world knows. I'm telling you, the world, there's so much left unknown. And the biggest mistake in the educational system and in teaching anything is fearing to go beyond your own limits. That means there was this show, it was this anime, it was this Japanese anime, I remember seeing it as a kid, where the characters could suddenly power up, where they could go surpass their limits, and I don't know, the character could go Super Saiyan, you know? So if you think about that idea, imagine in the educational system, it was just performance oriented. Right? There wasn't per se, I don't know how to say it, but it's like when a person wonders, somebody said this, I don't know who, but somehow I remembered. When you do something that surprises yourself, it most likely surprises others. So in any sort of expression, if a person goes all out to see what it would be like, and the easiest way is if the person is afraid of going, let's say 1 step ahead, the person, it's easy. You got to think of as far steps as you can, then 1 step becomes simple. The scale of what you want to do gives you the strength necessary. Language has been a distraction, but can be used as an incredible tool, you know. Imagine recycling your distractions. Jamie in the chat section says meta-natural. That's a good term. Really, where the winds of evolution are going are beyond human understanding. I feel no human being has spoken to nature. Nature, like the spirit of nature, is just awareness of the whole event and being part of it. That means it's remarkable how we as human beings, whatever identity, ego we have, deep down, we just want to participate as part of the natural world. I'm telling you, if people could just get that, it would be world peace. Because it's our life taken away. You know, people want their life force to have value, and so the issue is only in certain stages and spotlights there is a value. This is why I'm like, they should give the creators of YouTube like a medal. It's like if knowledge was food, and knowledge, what's a better way? If knowledge was an endless appetite to interpret, to translate the unknown into the known, our species is starving by how much it has relied on information rather than the actual reality. This is a totally different tangent, but why not? I'll get into it. Some philosophers, I would say in recent centuries, have pointed that the way society has gone, due to the sensitivity to a more precise human identity, that there has gone a wave of infantilization of not only men, but just of the human psyche. What that means is, rather than a sort of mentality of something being soft, getting introduced to something rough, and then adjusting itself, strengthening itself, it's as if something soft had met something rough, and instead of the soft advancing itself, strengthening itself, the soft is trying to make the rough soft, right? So, and this whole thing, there was this philosopher I'm going to bring here called Michel Foucault. He spoke about institutionalization and how, for example, back in the day, there was like the jester of the king, which was simultaneously a bard, like a musician, but the person was also like someone who entertained the king or whatever, right? And the jester of the king, to the king, he was like some silly clown, but then everybody in the town respected him as someone who works for the palace or whatnot, right? So the jester was kind of somewhat important to the outer and was respected in society in a strange way, right? Even though not by the king. He was a clown to the king. He was pretty much the king's TV. But the whole point of it was that it was okay to be strange in a world where there wasn't specifications on what normality had to be. So Michel Foucault, this French philosopher, and I don't know that much about him, but I know a few things about his work, that it was as if it stopped becoming okay for the strange to be in the world. And people began becoming sculpted to more of a, we thought in our minds our standard of living is getting higher, but on another level, our ignorance to the whole system. It was as if sometimes a person may feel powerful, but if you identify as your species, you will feel incredibly weak. You will feel incredibly offended. And it's like getting offended by a potential that's not activated, that could be there. the unknown is unknown, then life is not just life anymore. And even if self is an illusion to a world activity, that means the question, who is it for, may be wrong. Maybe that has been the human error. What is it for is also wrong. That means any questions, the moment the truth of the realm surpasses humanhood, all our knowledge becomes void to it. Because we brand it as human knowledge. So it's fair to say the sensory perception we get, our senses, are a language, and they are not the real world. Nobody has ever seen the real world. We have seen light plus some imprints of the real world, plus what our brain, how our brain is happening, right? So are we seeing what's out there, or are we being how the brain is happening, right? Michel Foucault pointed that the jester, or they may be archetypally the same. The jester, it was acceptable to be strange back in the day. You were just a different kind of human being. You were a human being in that, like, your strangeness was part of your style. It didn't mean you were less of a human being. But now, Michel Foucault was pointing out that as time went forth, institutionalization began, the voice of institutions began becoming louder, right? And it's not that this is a wrong thing, this is just how nature moved. Some things in history, whether they were good or bad, you're like, okay, that's what happened. If it's in the future, we can discuss its potential. But if it's when we talk about history, it's like the species has been there, done that. So what can we do? So Michel Foucault, anyways, was pointing how what was the jester, and in the street, someone who was seen as an important person in society, someone who was keeping calm, the psychology of the king or something. Then began becoming someone, oh my God, who's this freak? Get him out of here, And so that's what Michel Foucault was pointing, how culture changed how we valued how nature had become a human being. And we became more as if picky and more picky, to a point where it's like this pickiness is going to end up causing us to become robots eventually. I'm telling you, desire is for a machine. You desire too much, you live only in accordance to your desires in this life, you become a machine. There has to be a relationship with the living realm, and that relationship with the living is enough to renounce all hatred, violence, and rage. Or I would say ignorance, rage, anger. So the cultural program has become the dictator of freedom, especially if the information age has made us stop exploring in what ways the mind can be. It's as if the biggest it's strange, but it's as if we defined ourselves too soon and we limited our own evolution. But we limited in one dimension, in another dimension we cultivated a sophistication, an ability with language. So I would say we are still the same natural beings as we were in the jungles. It's that we've come into the concrete jungle as a training camp. And I feel we may return to a naturalness of the same caliber, but perhaps consciously. It's like looking at life and wondering what else is looking through your eyes. Wondering what else is. You see, there is a permission for many sorts of manifestation. We know, for example, there's radio waves. We know there's Wi-Fi, right? But we don't see these waves. But we know they are there, and how many things could potentially be there that we don't know, and how many of those things that could potentially be there could be intelligent. What if waves are intelligent? You know, that's something we haven't considered as a species. What if everything I'm saying right now for a nanosecond harbors life? I would say something about another clue for the body. This is something where it's a bit too soon for me to share, but just to have it on file. I've wondered, could it be that sight, the biology of the eyes, began underwater, as evolutionary biologists suggest, right? So our eyes evolved underwater. And I was wondering, thinking, could it be that consciousness had to access at a certain temperature? It needed a certain temperature. That means, what if consciousness is a certain temperature? That means it began when a certain temperature arose, or a possibility of a certain temperature for the intelligence of, let's say, two dimensions for one to solidify into the other, you know? As if, imagine something from another dimension, which was like a furnace, came and cooled down in another dimension. Okay, this is too heavenly. Guys, I see a white light, but I think it's from my computer screen. What can I say? Endless effort. Still there's so much unknown. You know, the species has no other option than to just be playful. That means, on one level, if you don't have fun in this realm, the intellect will go on overdrive. You know, you know, if you don't pilot between the simple and the complex, you know. The body is elements moving, so its mystery is like, why are these elements moving? The mind, its mystery is, why is it seeing a subjective overlay over the object as itself? Why is it identifying with a name? How is there even a concept as a self there? Right, so that's like a mystery of the mind. And when it comes to the mystery of the soul, is why is something that by nature is being need to do anything? That means it's as if a question of a body is, yo, do I have a soul? The question of a soul is, why do I have a body right now? Why is there embodiment? Why is there eventhood? You know, why is there participation in world? Like, you know, it's as if, for me, it's as if we woke up from nothing. Who are we kidding? We wake up from nothing. You know, nothing seems to be the dream, and everything is, we're saying, is the reality. You know, and when we're gonna die, everything's gonna seem like the dream, and nothing's gonna seem like the reality. You know, and it's like what is this constant sine wave? Like, what is the soul is like a dolphin. You know, I would say the karma of this universal sector is like a dolphin, you know, jumping in and out of manifestation. There we go. A song for the soul. For the mind, I would say something more, or let's say between the relationship of the mind and the soul. Can attention be beyond body? I've experienced moments, like once in my life, I experienced a moment where I woke up very consciously. I would say I was, think of it this way. I wake up above my head at the top of my room, and I'm looking at my room, and I see, this is me being very young, maybe like 10 years old or something, and I see my mother, she brought laundry into my room, and I was asleep, and I could see that image, right? And then I woke up and I saw the whole thing, right? I saw the laundry there in my room, and I saw my mother leaving my room and in the hallway. So it was something where it was as if I could know before the eyes were open. So that technically means attention is not limited to the body in a strange way. I don't know, it could be that imagination was so complex that just from auditory sensation it animated the whole room, and it was all a dream state where I was awakened, and through another indirect sense there was like an accuracy on what was going on in the room. That means the brain was simulating an exact copy in accordance to another sense's reliance. But I don't know, like, it's that it becomes very complex, but I'm saying it was an experience that was non-local, right? And also there has been moments where the concept of being out of body has not made sense, because it felt my body was in my mind, as if I am this presence of this moment, and what I am considering to be real is in me, you know, in the whole moment. So it's as if the person can't ever go out of body because the body is in the soul. You know? This guy's trying to go out of his body, man, and it's like my body's trying to go into my mind. This person's attention is trying to go out of their body. Mysticism, really, this is the cool thing about mysticism, that it strengthens the will of soloing it out to some degree, because in the inner realms it's solo. In the inner realms, your companions are your memories. So why is there anything at all? Why should existence be an elemental performance? And why is space holding stuff? like even space is a mystery, you know, even though you know, certain scientists, I heard this in a video on YouTube from a notable scientist. He was saying that in high school they teach people that light is, nothing goes faster than the speed of light. But when they actually go further into the sciences, this specific scientist in this video, this physicist, was saying that space moves faster than time. Now here's the challenge of how do we measure space, because we measure what is in space, right? It's as if, how do we measure the volume of the void? So it's like the biggest question: what is the first letter of the alphabet of that system of thought? What is the first axis of acceptance of realm? Anybody who wonders about how on what axis the world or the moment has been set can quickly pilot the moment. Anyways, guys, I think this is it for this episode. And just to mention the final divine clue. There is no reason for it to be here at all. This is the ultimate clue. This is the ultimate divine clue. There is no reason for any of this to be here. So good luck, knowledge. Oh man. You know, this is the perfect time to dive into ancient Greek quotes, guys. This is definitely that time of the talk to go into ancient Greek quote. I don't know why I'm feeling Aristotle. Let's see what Aristotle has to say. Aristotle says it is during our darkest moments that we must focus to see the light. Aristotle says quality is not an act, it is a habit. Aristotle says it is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it. Aristotle says you will never do anything in this world without courage. It is the greatest quality of the mind next to honor. That means courage is the comrade of honor in the same battlefield. Aristotle says the roots of education are bitter, but the fruit is sweet. Aristotle says anybody can become angry. That is easy. But to be angry with the right person and to the right degree and at the right time and for the right purpose and in the right way, that is not within everybody's power and is not easy. Aristotle says courage is the first of human qualities because it is the quality which guarantees the others. Wow. That means we need a courageous future generation. Parents have to make sure their children are courageous. but not only in the outer realms, also in the inner realms. That means the child is not afraid of their own mind, right? You can say violence is a demonstration of someone who is so weak that their mind had to express itself. It's violence, savageness in the outer realms, right? Because we are still animals. Because we're animals, it means like we can at any moment descend into our animal instincts, so we have to keep the animal savageness inside, even if it is just for the sake of the modernity we're trying to build here as a species. Aristotle says, well begun is half done. Aristotle says, I read that. Aristotle says, love is composed of a single soul inhabiting two bodies. You know, there is something they say about marriage, which is a cool statement. They say, when the person gets married, your 2 eyes become 4 eyes. Your 2 ears become 4 ears, you know. It's a union, it's as if it's a karmic union, right? Because when 2 beings enter a moment, whose karma is it? It's like both of them are in like some combination of a momentary karma. Excuse me. Aristotle says happiness depends upon ourselves. That means, who knew? Happiness is your responsibility. It's not something that comes to you. Aristotle says in all things of nature there's something of the marvelous. There we go. This whole quote backs up what I'm trying to say. The marvelous is the divine clue. For me, it's like also a divine mystery how many people listen but don't subscribe. It's like, what is this? What is the universe? No, I'm joking. You know, my strategy with this channel is like, I'm just watering a tree every day. You know, let's see if it's a sequoia, you know. Aristotle says the energy of the mind is the essence of life. Okay, that's very, doesn't get more direct than that. The energy of the mind is the essence of life. That means the person's like, how do I wield my energy? It's like, yeah, man, your energy is your mind. Just control your mind. Can you imagine somebody went up to Aristotle, hey Aristotle, how you doing, man? It's like, the energy of the mind is the essence of life. It's like, okay, man, I'll talk to you later. You see, that's the cool thing. When there's true explorers, they don't fear the edge. So it becomes fun trying to find the edge of the system, any system the person is in. Aristotle says those that know do, those that understand teach. Yeah. There's no such thing as teaching, to be honest. But there's a point there. It means that if there was something requiring change, you can't teach change. You got to go bring it. But if you want to bring if you want to lead to a massive global brainstorming session of the species' future, that's a different thing, you know. Aristotle says the aim of art is to represent not the outward appearance of things, but their inward significance. Aristotle says a friend to all is a friend to none. Unless you're Japanese, where every room, the man is the room he's in. Here's the thing. Behavior, if dependent on the outer realms, changes. If dependent on the inner realms, doesn't have to change and goes in accordance to how the person wants the pilot. So that means instead of the word friend, any other word can be interchanged here. An enemy to all is an enemy to none. But it could be true in the sense that there is no friend. There is no identity after some point. So there is this view where how do you get rid of this, it's like this Tibetan Buddhist saying would say, get rid of your anger and your, if you don't get rid of your anger, your enemies will be inexhaustible. So when you try to get rid of your anger, you're going towards the selfless. And so to be universal means that it can't be just self-based. Once people realize everybody's in their inner realm, behavior can never be judged. Honestly. But anyways, Aristotle says the aim of the wise is not to secure pleasure, but to avoid pain. Aristotle says he who is unable to live in society or who has no need because he's sufficient for himself must either be a beast or a god. Wow. Wow. It's as if it's a thin line between being a beast and a god. What an important quote. He who is unable to live in society or who has no need because he's sufficient for himself must either be a beast or a god. And they are technically the same thing. It's just one is identifying with the observer, the other is just being the observed. One is the self moving, one is the world moving. So that's the thing. Right? There should never be who is unable to live in society. There should just be a society that is, I mean, the common sense of it is like a human being. Ants help the anthill, bees help the beehive. A human being should help society, right? It just seems natural, you know. So if the person doesn't care for society, that means they haven't cared to be a human being. So of course, the only options are beast and a god. Yeah, if you don't want to be in society, there is the idea of the human being. If the person doesn't want to be where there is humanity, then the person is not human. It's dehumanized consciousness. And now more than ever, especially at this time, we need humanized consciousness rather than dehumanized. It's okay to notice yourself dehumanized, but it doesn't mean forget you're a self, because selflessness was everything. You know, it's like there's more. You know, it's like a temporary being's ego after a while to only be selfless in a changing world. It's not there's selfishness, but there is just intelligence, right? Intelligence has a sensitivity. It's like instinct meshed with, like, you know, it's like, you know, it's as if our mind is another body in another dimension, and the instincts of that body is our intuition, and the instincts of this body in this dimension is like the instincts we call things. Anyways, I'll keep going with the quote tunnel. Aristotle says the end of labor is to gain leisure. Aristotle says whoever is delighted in solitude is either a wild beast or a god. It's like, we get it, man, we get it. Aristotle says the worst form of inequality is to try to make unequal things equal. Aristotle says there is no great genius without some touch of madness. Aristotle says education is an ornament in prosperity and a refuge in adversity. Aristotle says the worst form of, I read that, he says, at his best, man is the noblest of all animals. Separated from law and justice, he is the worst. So our nobility is the fruition of abiding by law, but by efficient laws, because laws are being programmed by human beings, so everything can be updated, you know, just like software of, you know, just like in a computer, software updates, right, and the hardware updates. Our hardware is biology, our software is the story of the world we're all collectively living in, right? So that software can update. Right now it's on a nationalistic point, and with these talks I'm saying we should already have global patches by now, you know what I mean? Universal dreams will make us awaken to the global reality instantly. Aristotle says to run away from trouble is a form of cowardice, and while it is true that suicide braves death, he does it not for some noble object, but to escape some ill. Pretty much Aristotle's saying have honor. Try it out. Aristotle says at his best, man is the noblest of all animals. I read that, oh my god. Aristotle says pleasure in the job puts perfection in the work. Aristotle says wishing to be friends is quick work, but friendship is a slow ripening fruit. Aristotle says the law is reason, free from passion. Aristotle says democracy is when the indigent, and not the men of property are the rulers. Aristotle says we make war that we may live in peace. And when you think about this quote, guys, how many wars have started where the person was saying we're doing it for peace? Like, it's ridiculous. Peace has been the biggest reason to start war. because our species didn't know better. But now that we've read this Aristotle quote, we know better. You know, Leo Tolstoy, this Russian philosopher, he had a lot of his work focused on this similar content of how there is a blindness in war, where how, for example, in the Russo-Japanese war, the Russian Tsar was saying to the Russians, God is on our side, and the Japanese emperor was saying something similar to his men. So it was something where both sides were like, yeah, the universe is with us, God is with us, you know, and they're marching into battle. At the same time, it's the ignorance of the obliviousness that there is enough room for the multidimensional to thrive, right? But back in the day, they didn't have patience. So the more patient we become, the more efficiently laws can be used. You see, a law is like a two-way kind of thing. You know, it's something that is set for all human activity to some degree in that space or wherever it's set, the law. Anyways, to continue. Aristotle says good habits formed at youth make all the difference. Aristotle says, I count him braver who overcomes his desires than him who conquers his enemies, for the hardest victory is over self. Aristotle says, hope is a waking dream. Aristotle says, dignity does not consist in possessing honors, but in deserving them. Aristotle says, the duty of rhetoric is to deal with such matters as we deliberate upon without arts or systems to guide us, in the hearing of persons who cannot take in at a glance a complicated argument or follow a long chain of reasoning. Yeah, so pretty much it's following a film. He's saying you can't do that with a system, you gotta just follow the film. The language-based film. Aristotle says, what it lies in our power to do, it lies in our power not to do. Aristotle says the educated differ from the uneducated as much as the living from the dead. But Aristotle's view on education wasn't like modern education. It was actually wondering about the universe, like an explorer, not like you know, just armed with the past. You know, there's more needed. Anyways. I hope this episode was helpful. And the divinity of the human mystery, it's just wondering about all the unknown ways that what we know moves to us. So the self can be unknown, and the self can be known, and the world can be known, and the world can be unknown. Anyways, guys, thanks for listening. Blessings.